The signal cut through space like a blade through silk. Admiral Chen Mei Lin stood before the massive display screen in Earth's Deep Space Communication Center, watching the alien transmission replay for the 5th time. The universal distress pattern was clear, but the accompanying data made her blood run cold. "Run the translation again," she ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of what they were seeing. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the facility's lead xenolinguist, adjusted her headset. "The message is from the Zephyrian Confederation, Admiral. Their entire star system is under attack by something they call the Swarm. They're requesting immediate military assistance from any spacefaring civilization capable of combat operations." The holographic display showed a 3-dimensional map of the Zephyrian system, located 47 light-years from Earth. Red indicators pulsed ominously around their 3 inhabited worlds, each one representing massive, unknown vessels. "How long since they sent this?" Chen asked. "The transmission originated 6 months ago, Earth time. Given the distance, we're seeing this in real time relative to their situation." Admiral Chen studied the tactical readout. The Zephyrians were a peaceful species known throughout the galaxy for their advanced medical technology and philosophical pursuits. They had made first contact with Earth only 5 years earlier, establishing trade agreements for their remarkable healing serums in exchange for Earth's agricultural innovations. They were allies, even if they were barely more than acquaintances. "What do we know about their military capabilities?" Chen asked Commander Torres, her tactical officer. Torres pulled up another display. "Limited, Admiral. The Zephyrians maintain a small defense fleet primarily designed for asteroid mining and space rescue operations. Their largest vessels are roughly Corvette class by our standards. They've never engaged in large-scale warfare." "And this swarm?" "Unknown. The transmission includes some tactical data, but it's fragmented. What we can piece together suggests vessels of unprecedented size, possibly organic in nature, with technology that seems to consume other ships." Dr. Martinez leaned forward. "Admiral, there's something else. The Zephyrians specifically mentioned that they've sent distress calls to 17 other spacefaring civilizations. None have responded." A heavy silence fell over the command center. Earth was still relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 8 years earlier. Most established civilizations viewed humanity with curiosity at best, suspicion at worst. The fact that 17 more advanced civilizations had ignored a distress call spoke volumes about the perceived danger. "Ma'am," interrupted Lieutenant Park from the communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Geneva. The United Earth Council wants an immediate briefing." Admiral Chen nodded. She had expected this. Any decision to respond to the Zephyrian crisis would require authorization from the highest levels of Earth's government. 3 hours later, Chen found herself standing before the emergency session of the United Earth Council. Representatives from every nation sat in the curved amphitheater, their faces grave as she presented the situation. "The choice before us is clear," Chen concluded her briefing. "A peaceful ally is facing extinction, and they've specifically asked for our help. We are the only civilization that has responded to their distress call." Council Chairman Viktor Petrov, representing the European Federation, spoke first. "Admiral Chen, you're asking us to commit our military forces to a conflict 47 light-years away, against an unknown enemy that has already defeated Zephyrian defenses. What guarantee do we have that our intervention would be successful?" "None, sir," Chen replied honestly. "What I can tell you is that Earth's military doctrine is fundamentally different from what the galaxy has seen before. While other civilizations have focused on defensive strategies and technological superiority, humanity's entire military history has been built on adaptability, unconventional tactics, and the willingness to face overwhelming odds." Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the Pacific Alliance leaned forward. "Admiral, help me understand. The Zephyrians describe these swarm vessels as massive, possibly organic, with technology that consumes other ships. How exactly would our relatively small fleet make a difference? Chen activated a holographic display showing Earth's current military assets. Dr. Tanaka, while our fleet may be smaller than established galactic powers, it's designed for rapid deployment and maximum impact. Our ships are built for durability and adaptability. More importantly, our personnel are trained for exactly these kinds of scenarios. Explain, demanded General Hassan from the African Union. Earth is what galactic civilization calls a death world, General. Our planet has produced life that evolved through constant environmental challenges, predation, and survival scenarios. Every human who serves in our military has been shaped by this evolutionary pressure. We don't just fight to win, we fight to survive, and humans are very, very good at surviving. President Adams from the North American Federation stood up. Admiral, even if we decide to respond, the logistics seem impossible. How long would it take our forces to reach the Zephyrian system? Using our fastest FTL drives, approximately 3 weeks, sir. I've already prepared deployment scenarios using our most mobile assets. Which are? Chen highlighted several sections of the display. The UES Defiance, a heavy cruiser designed for extended independent operations. The UES Ranger, our most advanced exploration and combat vessel. The UES Storm, a fast attack ship equipped with experimental weaponry, plus support vessels and our newly formed Deep Space Marines Battalion. The room erupted in concerned murmurs. Council Representative Liu from the East Asian Coalition stood up. Admiral, you're talking about deploying nearly 15% of our total fleet capacity. If this mission fails, Earth's defensive capabilities would be severely compromised. That's correct, Representative Liu. But if we don't respond and the swarm continues expanding, how long before they reach Earth? The Zephyrians are 47 light-years away. At the rate of expansion described in their data, this threat could reach our outer colonies within 2 years. Chairman Petrov called for order. Admiral Chen, assuming the Council authorizes this mission, who would command the task force? Chen straightened. I would recommend Admiral Marcus Stone, sir. He commanded the successful defense of the Proxima Station against the Rigelian separatists. His experience with unconventional warfare and multi-species operations makes him ideal for this mission. And the Deep Space Marines? Colonel Sarah Reeves, sir. She developed our current deep space combat protocols and led the successful rescue mission at the Tau Ceti Research Station. Her Marines have trained specifically for hostile environment operations aboard unknown vessels. Dr. Martinez, who had been observing the session, was called forward. Dr. Martinez, what can you tell us about potential communication with this swarm? Very little, Council members. The Zephyrian data suggests the swarm doesn't respond to any standard communication protocols. They appear to operate with a single-minded focus on consumption and expansion. However, this could be a translation error or cultural misunderstanding. President Adams looked directly at Admiral Chen. Admiral, I need your honest assessment. Can we save the Zephyrians? Chen met his gaze steadily. Sir, I believe we can. Not because we're technologically superior to the civilizations that refuse to help, but because we're different. Earth's history is filled with examples of smaller, more determined forces defeating larger, more advanced enemies. The Spartans at Thermopylae, the British Royal Air Force during the Battle of Britain, the defenders at the siege of Stalingrad. Humans have a unique capacity to turn desperation into strength. And if we're wrong, then we'll have died trying to save allies who trusted us enough to ask for help. That's something I can live with, sir, or die with. The council members exchanged glances, and Chairman Petrov called for a recess to debate privately. Chen waited in the hallway, knowing that the next few hours would determine not just the fate of the Zephyrians, but possibly Earth's role in galactic civilization. When the session resumed, Chairman Petrov's expression was grim but determined. Admiral Chen, The United Earth Council authorizes Operation Guardian Shield. You have full military discretion to respond to the Zephyrian crisis. Your mission is clear. Defend our allies and eliminate the swarm threat. How soon can the task force deploy? Chen felt a surge of pride and determination. 72 hours, sir. Admiral Stone is already en route to Luna Base for mission briefing. Colonel Reeves has her Marines on standby. All designated vessels are undergoing final preparations. What do you need from us? Authorization to recruit volunteers from Allied colonies, access to our experimental weapon systems, and permission to operate with full tactical independence once the task force reaches Zephyrian space. Granted. As the council session ended, Chen allowed herself a moment to consider what they were undertaking. Earth was committing to a rescue mission that 17 more advanced civilizations had deemed impossible or foolish. They were sending human ships and human crews into the unknown, armed with nothing but determination and the particular brand of stubborn courage that had carried their species from the caves of Africa to the stars. Back at Luna Base, preparations moved with military precision. Admiral Marcus Stone reviewed tactical data while his staff coordinated with supply officers and engineering teams. The UES Defiance, a massive, heavy cruiser bristling with Earth's most advanced weapons, dominated the shipyard like a sleeping giant. Captain Diana Walsh stood on the bridge of the UES Ranger, overseeing final system checks. Her ship was smaller than the Defiance, but faster and more maneuverable, designed for reconnaissance and rapid strike operations. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, each person knowing their role in the coming mission. In the Marine quarters, Colonel Sarah Reeves addressed her battalion. 200 of Earth's finest soldiers, each one trained for combat in hostile environments, each one aware that they might be humanity's only chance to prove themselves worthy allies to the galaxy. Marines, Reeves began, her voice carrying clearly through the assembled ranks. Tomorrow we leave Earth to fight an enemy we've never seen, in defense of people we barely know, in a war that 17 other civilizations were afraid to join. Any questions about why we're going? Sergeant Major Rodriguez raised his hand. Colonel, are we expected to win? Sergeant Major, we're expected to be human. Everything else will follow. The Marines understood. They had trained for years, knowing that someday they might face the impossible. Today, that day had arrived. And they were ready. Admiral Stone stood before the massive view screen on the UES Defiance, watching Earth slowly rotate below them. In 18 hours, the task force would jump to FTL and begin the 3-week journey to Zephyrian space. Behind them, they would leave the safety and familiarity of home. Ahead lay the unknown and possibly death. But Admiral Stone had studied human military history. He knew that humanity's greatest victories had come not from superior technology or overwhelming force, but from the willingness to face impossible odds with determination and creativity. The galaxy was about to learn what Earth's Deathworlders could accomplish when their allies called for help. The final transmission from Earth came directly from Admiral Chen. Task Force Guardian Shield, you carry with you the hopes of 2 worlds and the reputation of our species. Show them what humans can do when their friends are in danger. Good hunting. As the ships prepared for their jump to hyperspace, Admiral Stone reflected on the magnitude of their mission. They weren't just trying to save the Zephyrians. They were announcing to the galaxy that Earth stood by its allies regardless of the cost. Win or lose, the galaxy would know that when humanity gave its word, it meant something. The countdown began, and the task force prepared to leap into the unknown, carrying Earth's answer to a desperate plea for help. The Zephyrian system materialized around Task Force Guardian Shield like a nightmare painted in starlight. Admiral Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the tactical display populate with hostile contacts. The reality was worse than their worst projections. "Tactical report," Stone ordered, his voice calm despite the overwhelming sight before them. Commander Park, the task force intelligence officer, worked frantically at her station. "Sir, I'm reading 37 large vessels in the outer system, each one approximately 2 kilometers in length. They appear to be organic in nature with metallic augmentations. They're not following standard orbital mechanics." Captain Walsh's voice crackled over the communication channel from the UES Ranger. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from those ships. They're definitely not using conventional propulsion." Stone studied the holographic display. The swarm vessels moved in fluid formations, more like schools of predatory fish than traditional military formations. They pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to communicate information between ships. "Where are the Zephyrian forces?" Stone asked. "Sir, detecting minimal Zephyrian signatures near their homeworld, Zephys Prime. It looks like they've consolidated their remaining fleet into a defensive perimeter around the planet. I count maybe 12 vessels still operational." The communications officer turned toward Stone. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian fleet. They're requesting immediate identification." "Put them through." The main screen flickered, revealing the bridge of a Zephyrian vessel. The creature speaking wore what appeared to be a military uniform, but its 4 arms moved in graceful gestures that seemed both alien and somehow familiar. Its large, multifaceted eyes reflected intelligence and desperate hope. "Unknown vessels. This is Fleet Commander Zethkar of the Zephyrian Defense Force. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. We are currently under siege by hostile forces." Admiral Stone stepped forward. "Fleet Commander Zethkar, this is Admiral Marcus Stone of the Earth Task Force Guardian Shield. We received your distress call and have come to provide military assistance." The Zephyrian's 4 eyes widened in what appeared to be surprise. "Earth? The Deathworld species? You actually came?" "We did. What's the current tactical situation?" Zethkar's image flickered as explosions erupted somewhere on his ship. "Admiral Stone, the swarm has been systematically destroying our outer colonies for 3 standard cycles. We've lost 60% of our fleet trying to protect civilian evacuations. The enemy vessels appear to be living creatures, but they use technology we don't understand. They consume our ships, literally absorbing the material and energy to grow larger." Stone felt his jaw tighten. The reports had been accurate. "Commander Zethkar, we're going to need detailed intelligence on swarm capabilities and attack patterns. Can you provide tactical data?" "Certainly, but Admiral..." Zethkar paused, his alien features showing uncertainty. "With respect, your task force appears to be only 4 vessels. The swarm has 43 active ships, many of which are larger than your largest vessel. How do you propose to engage such overwhelming numbers?" Stone smiled grimly. "Commander, Earth has a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. We're about to show the swarm what Earth's Deathworlders can accomplish." The data transfer from the Zephyrian fleet painted a clear picture. The swarm operated unlike any military force in known galactic history. Their ships were indeed organic, resembling massive spaceborne creatures with technological augmentations. They moved in coordinated groups, using some form of biological communication that Earth's sensors couldn't intercept. Most critically, they had demonstrated the ability to literally consume destroyed enemy vessels, incorporating the materials into their own biomass to grow larger and more powerful. "It's like fighting cancer," Dr. Sarah Kim, the task force's xenobiologist, reported during the emergency briefing. "Each swarm ship we destroy potentially makes the survivors stronger. Traditional attrition warfare won't work here." Colonel Reeves leaned forward in the briefing room. "What about their weaknesses? Everything biological has weaknesses." "Limited data, Colonel. The Zephyrians report that the creatures seem vulnerable to certain electromagnetic frequencies, but they adapt quickly. What worked once rarely works twice. Admiral Stone studied the tactical projections. Then we don't give them time to adapt. Captain Walsh, I want the Ranger to begin reconnaissance runs on the outer swarm perimeter. Use stealth systems and passive sensors only. I need to understand their patrol patterns. Yes, sir. Colonel Reeves, prepare your Marines for boarding operations. If these things are biological, they might be vulnerable to close-quarters assault. Admiral, Commander Park interrupted. The swarm ships are beginning to move. They're forming up into what looks like an attack formation aimed at Zephys Prime. Stone watched the display as the massive organic vessels began to accelerate toward the Zephyrian homeworld. Time was running out. All ships, this is Guardian Actual. Commence Operation Hornet's Nest. Captain Walsh, take the Ranger and begin harassing attacks on their flanking elements. Use hit-and-run tactics. Don't let them pin you down. Captain Morrison, move the Storm into position for torpedo runs on their formation leaders. UES Defiance will provide covering fire and serve as the anvil for our hammer strikes. The Earth Task Force scattered into action with practiced precision. The UES Ranger, sleek and fast, curved around the swarm formation like a hunting predator. Captain Walsh waited until her ship was perfectly positioned before launching the first attack. Fire control, target the lead swarm vessel with quantum torpedoes. Full spread. 6 brilliant points of light streaked across space, striking the massive bioship along its dorsal ridge. The explosions bloomed like deadly flowers, and the creature's bioluminescent patterns flared in what might have been pain or rage. Direct hits, Captain. The target is showing damage, but it's already beginning to regenerate. As expected, Helm, get us out of here. Next target. The Ranger vanished back into space as the swarm formation began to react. Several of the massive creatures broke off from the main group, pursuing the Earthship with surprising speed. But the Ranger was already gone, appearing on the opposite side of the formation to strike another target. Meanwhile, the UES Storm unleashed its own brand of warfare. Captain Chen had equipped his ship with experimental kinetic weapons that fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The theory was simple. If the swarm creatures were biological, they would be vulnerable to physical trauma, just like any living thing. Firing solution locked, Captain. Fire! The kinetic projectiles struck a swarm ship like invisible hammers, punching through its bio-armor and causing massive internal trauma. Unlike energy weapons, which the creatures seemed able to partially absorb, the physical impacts caused immediate and severe damage. Target is heavily damaged and falling out of formation, sir. Excellent. Reload and acquire next target. Admiral Stone watched the opening moves of the battle from the bridge of the Defiance. Earth's ships were performing exactly as planned, but he could see that the swarm was learning. Already the creatures were adapting their formations to counter human tactics. Sir, incoming transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. Put Commander Zethkar through. The alien officer appeared on screen, his multiple eyes wide with apparent amazement. Admiral Stone, your ships. They're actually damaging the swarm vessels. How is this possible? We've been fighting these creatures for months with minimal effect. Stone kept his eyes on the tactical display. Commander, what did your previous attacks consist of? Standard energy-based weapons, ion cannons, photon torpedoes, the usual ship-to-ship armaments. And you engaged them in traditional fleet formations? Of course. Standard galactic naval doctrine calls for organized battle lines and coordinated bombardments. Stone nodded, understanding the problem. Commander, Earth's military doctrine was developed fighting other humans. We learned long ago that conventional tactics against unconventional enemies lead to defeat. We're not trying to destroy the swarm in a fair fight. We're trying to hurt them badly enough to drive them away. I don't understand. Watch and learn. On the tactical display, The UES Ranger was performing a maneuver that would have been considered impossible by traditional galactic standards. Captain Walsh had brought her ship directly between two swarm vessels, using their own bulk as cover while launching torpedoes at point-blank range into their unarmored undersides. The explosions were spectacular, and both swarm ships reeled from the assault. But the Ranger was already gone, having used the confusion to slip away before either creature could react. "Your Captain Walsh is either insane or brilliant," Zethkar observed. "Both," Stone replied. "That's what makes her effective." The battle continued for 3 hours, with Earth's ships dancing around the swarm formation like deadly insects. They struck fast and hard, then vanished before the massive creatures could bring their superior firepower to bear. It was warfare by mosquito bite, death by 1,000 cuts, but Stone could see the larger picture developing on his tactical display. Despite their success, the swarm was adapting. Their formations were tightening, their responses becoming faster and more coordinated. Worse, the Earth ships were beginning to show the strain of constant high-speed maneuvering and combat. "Admiral," Commander Park reported, "the Ranger is reporting engine stress. Captain Walsh says she needs at least 30 minutes for emergency repairs." "The Storm is down to 40% ammunition," added the communications officer. "Captain Chen is requesting resupply." Stone made his decision. "All ships fall back to Rally Point Alpha. We're going to Phase 2. As the Earth ships withdrew to regroup, Admiral Stone activated the secure channel to Colonel Reeves. "Colonel, it's time for your Marines to earn their pay." 3 hours later, Colonel Sarah Reeves stood in the airlock of the UES Defiance, checking her equipment one final time. Behind her, 200 of Earth's finest warriors prepared for the most dangerous mission of their careers. They were about to attempt something no military force in galactic history had ever tried: boarding a living enemy ship. "Remember your training," Reeves addressed her Marines over the comm system. "These ships are biological, which means they have circulatory systems, nervous systems, and vital organs. Find them and destroy them. We're not trying to capture these things. We're trying to kill them from the inside." The plan was audacious in its simplicity. While the main Earth fleet conducted diversionary attacks, Marine boarding pods would be launched directly at the swarm ships. The pods were designed to penetrate bioarmor and deliver their human cargo into the interior of the enemy vessels. Once inside, the Marines would locate and destroy critical biological systems. 30 seconds to launch," announced the pod pilot. Reeves felt the familiar calm that came before combat. She had led Marines in hostile environments across 3 star systems. But this was different. This time, they weren't just fighting for Earth or for military objectives. They were fighting to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Launch. The boarding pod shot from the Defiance like a bullet from a gun, accelerating toward the nearest swarm ship at tremendous speed. Around her, Reeves could see dozens of other pods following similar trajectories, each one carrying a squad of Earth's Deathworlders into the heart of the enemy. "Impact in 15 seconds, the pilot announced. "Brace for penetration." The pod struck the swarm ship's bio-armor with tremendous force, its specialized drill tip boring through layers of organic material before finally coming to rest inside what appeared to be a vast internal cavity. The air that rushed in as the pod doors opened was thick and humid, carrying unfamiliar chemical scents. "Marines, move out," Reeves ordered. "Squad Alpha, secure the landing zone. Squad Bravo with me. We're hunting for the brain." The interior of the swarm ship defied easy description. Walls pulsed with organic rhythms, and bioluminescent veins carried unknown fluids through tube-like passages. The floor was soft and slightly yielding, like walking on living tissue. In the distance, alien sounds echoed through the ship's structure. "Colonel," whispered Sergeant Martinez, "are we inside a spaceship or inside an animal?" Both, Reeves replied, consulting her scanner. And we're here to perform surgery. The Marines moved through the organic corridors with practiced stealth, their enhanced armor sealing them against whatever atmosphere the creature breathed. Their objective was simple: locate the ship's central nervous system and destroy it. They found resistance almost immediately. Creatures that looked like a cross between insects and machines skittered through the passages, apparently serving as the ship's immune system. The Marines engaged them with weapons specifically designed for biological targets, using ammunition that would disrupt cellular structure rather than simply causing physical trauma. "Contact left," called out Corporal Johnson. "Multiple hostiles, bug type approaching fast." The firefight was brief but intense. The swarm's internal defenses were numerous but poorly organized, more like antibodies than soldiers. The Marines cut through them with professional efficiency, advancing deeper into the ship's core. "Colonel," reported Sergeant Park over the comm, "I'm reading massive bioelectrical activity 50 meters ahead. It might be the central nervous system." Reeves led her team forward, following the increasingly intense electrical signatures on their scanners. They rounded a corner and stopped in amazement. Before them stretched a vast chamber filled with what could only be described as a biological computer. Neurons the size of tree trunks pulsed with electrical activity, connecting to processing nodes that seemed to coordinate the ship's functions. "This is it," Reeves breathed. "The brain. Plant the charges. We're going to give this thing a migraine it won't survive." The Marines worked quickly, placing high explosive charges at critical junction points throughout the neural network. As they worked, the ship around them began to shudder and convulse, apparently aware that its vital systems were under attack. "Charges set, Colonel. Recommend immediate withdrawal." "Agreed. All teams, extract to designated pickup points. We have 2 minutes before detonation." The Marines fought their way back through increasingly desperate biological defenses, the ship's immune system finally recognizing the severity of the threat. But humans had evolved to fight and survive under pressure, and the Marines reached their extraction points with seconds to spare. The explosions that followed were visible even from the Defiance. The massive swarm ship convulsed like a dying whale, its bioluminescent patterns flickering and going dark. Within minutes, the creature was drifting dead in space, its massive bulk cooling as biological functions shut down one by one. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as Earth's Marines struck at the heart of the swarm fleet. It was warfare, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Surgical strikes against living enemies, conducted by warriors who understood that sometimes the only way to stop a monster was to cut out its heart. Admiral Stone watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. 7 swarm ships were now dead or dying, their massive hulks drifting lifeless through space. The remaining creatures had pulled back from their advance on Zephyrus Prime, apparently confused by the sudden loss of so many of their fellows. But Stone knew this was only the beginning. The swarm was learning, adapting, preparing for the next phase of battle. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, more of these creatures were waiting. The swarm's retaliation came 18 hours later with a fury that shook the entire star system. Admiral Stone watched from the bridge of the UES Defiance as long-range sensors detected new contacts jumping into the system's outer edge. Not just a few ships, but dozens of massive biovessels, each one larger than the creatures they had already faced. "Tactical analysis," Stone ordered, his voice betraying none of the concern he felt. Commander Park worked frantically at her station. "Admiral, I'm reading 57 new contacts, each one significantly larger than the previous swarm ships. Some of these things are over 4 kilometers in length. They're moving in perfect coordination toward our position." Captain Walsh's voice crackled over the comm from the UES Ranger. "Admiral, my ship's sensors are detecting energy signatures unlike anything we've seen before. These new arrivals aren't just bigger. They're different, More heavily armed, more heavily armored. Stone studied the tactical display with growing understanding. The Marines' successful boarding actions had done more than eliminate swarm ships. They had provided the enemy with detailed information about human capabilities. The creatures had analyzed the threat and responded accordingly, calling in what could only be described as their heavy assault units. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "incoming transmission from Fleet Commander Zethkar." The Zephyrian officer appeared on screen, his forearms moving in what Stone had learned were gestures of extreme agitation. "Admiral Stone, long-range sensors show massive swarm reinforcements entering the system. My military advisors calculate that your task force is now outnumbered by more than 20 to 1. We understand if you choose to withdraw to protect your own forces." Stone looked at the alien commander for a long moment before responding. "Commander Zethkar, has any civilization in galactic history ever successfully resisted a swarm invasion?" "None, Admiral. Every recorded encounter has resulted in complete system consumption. That's why no one responded to our distress call. Then it appears Earth is about to make history." Stone turned to his tactical officer. "Commander Park, signal all ships. We're implementing Operation Deathworld." The plan that Admiral Stone had developed during the long journey from Earth was based on a simple premise. If conventional military tactics were insufficient, then humanity would have to rely on the one thing that had allowed their species to survive and thrive on the galaxy's most dangerous planet: adaptability. Colonel Reeves received her orders while supervising the rearming of her Marines aboard the Defiance. The mission was unlike anything ever attempted in modern warfare. They were going to turn the swarm's own biology against itself. Dr. Sarah Kim, the task force xenobiologist, had made a crucial discovery during the analysis of samples from the destroyed swarm ships. The creatures weren't just organic. They were essentially a form of space-based viral organism designed to consume and incorporate other life forms into their collective structure. The key insight, Dr. Kim explained to the assembled command staff, is that the swarm operates like a biological computer network. Each ship is essentially a neuron in a larger brain. They share information through biochemical signals that travel between vessels. But like any biological system, it's vulnerable to the right kind of virus. Stone leaned forward. "Explain." "Colonel Reeves's Marines brought back samples of the swarm's internal structure. Working with our computer systems, I've developed what can only be called a biological software virus. It's designed to spread through the swarm's communication network and disrupt their coordination systems." "How do we deploy it?" "The same way we deployed the Marines. Close contact." The largest swarm ship in the new wave measured nearly 5 kilometers in length and bristled with what appeared to be organic weapon systems. It hung in space like a malevolent god, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to coordinate the movements of its smaller companions. Colonel Reeves led 50 volunteers on what everyone understood might be a one-way mission. Their boarding pods had been modified to carry Dr. Kim's virus rather than explosive charges. The plan was to penetrate the massive ship's communication center and introduce the virus directly into its biological network. 30 seconds to launch, announced the pilot as Reeves checked her equipment one final time. Around her, the Marines prepared for what might be their final battle. "Marines," Reeves addressed her troops, "today we're not just fighting for the Zephyrians. We're fighting to prove that humanity deserves to stand among the stars as equals. Every civilization in the galaxy believes this enemy is unstoppable. Let's show them what humans can accomplish when we refuse to accept defeat." The boarding pod launched from the Defiance like a dart thrown by an angry god, accelerating toward the massive swarm ship at tremendous velocity. Around them, the space battle raged as Earth's remaining ships conducted the most audacious diversionary attack in military history. Captain Walsh pushed the UES Ranger to its absolute limits, dancing between massive bioships that could have swatted her vessel like an insect. Her weapons struck constantly, not to destroy but to distract, keeping the swarm's attention focused away from the marine boarding operation. The UES Storm, under Captain Chen's command, had become something approaching a legend among the Zephyrian fleet. The smaller Earth vessel twisted and weaved through formations of massive enemies, its experimental kinetic weapons striking with surgical precision at critical systems. Chen's crew had perfected the art of hit-and-run warfare to a degree that impressed even seasoned military observers. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the Defiance, coordinating the complex operation while personally engaging the largest swarm ships with his heavy cruiser's formidable weapons. The ship shook under enemy fire, but human engineering and human determination kept her fighting. "Admiral," Commander Park called out, "Colonel Reeves has successfully penetrated the target vessel. Marines are proceeding to the communication center." Inside the massive swarm ship, Colonel Reeves led her team through passages that defied description. The interior was like traveling through the digestive system of some cosmic monster, with organic walls that pulsed and contracted around them. Bioluminescent fluids flowed through transparent vessels overhead, carrying information and nutrients to distant parts of the creature. "Movement ahead," reported Sergeant Martinez. "Multiple contacts, insect type moving to intercept." The swarm's immune system had learned from previous marine incursions. The defending organisms were larger and more aggressive, moving with coordinated intelligence rather than simple biological response. The firefight that followed was fierce and desperate, with Marines using every trick of combat they had learned in training and battle. "Grenades!" shouted Corporal Thompson, lobbing explosive devices into a cluster of attacking creatures. The explosions echoed through the organic corridors, sending bioluminescent fluid splashing across the walls. Reeves pressed forward, following her scanner's readings toward the massive electrical activity that marked the ship's communication center. Behind her, the Marines fought a running battle against increasingly desperate biological defenses. They found the center in a vast chamber that stretched beyond the reach of their lights. Organic structures that looked like massive coral formations reached toward the ceiling, pulsing with electrical activity that coordinated the entire swarm fleet. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Dr. Kim," Reeves called into her communicator, "we're at the target. How do I deploy your virus?" Kim's voice crackled through the comm system. "Find the central processing node, Colonel. It should be the largest structure, with the most electrical activity. The virus needs direct contact with the ship's neural fluid." Reeves located the target, a massive organic structure that pulsed with the rhythm of a giant heart. Bioluminescent veins carried information to and from every part of the ship, making it the perfect injection point for Dr. Kim's weapon. "Cover me," Reeves ordered, approaching the structure with the viral payload. The device was smaller than a human hand, but contained the condensed knowledge of Earth's finest biologists and computer programmers. It represented humanity's answer to a threat that had consumed entire civilizations. As Reeves attached the device to the central node, the chamber around them began to convulse. The massive ship had recognized the nature of the threat and was trying to purge the intruders before they could complete their mission. "Colonel," Sergeant Martinez called out urgently, "massive movement throughout the ship. I think it knows what we're doing." "Almost finished," Reeves replied, programming the final activation sequence into Dr. Kim's device. "Just a few more seconds." The device activated with a soft chime that seemed absurdly gentle given its purpose. Immediately, the bioluminescent patterns around them began to flicker and change as the virus spread through the ship's biological network like wildfire through dry grass. "Package delivered," Reeves announced. "All teams extract immediately. This place is about to become very unfriendly." The Marines fought their way back through collapsing passages as the massive ship began to tear itself apart from within. The virus was spreading faster than anticipated, disrupting not just communications, but basic biological functions. The creature was dying, and it was taking its rage out on everything within its reach. They reached the extraction point just as the entire section began to collapse. The pickup ship, a heavily modified marine transport, dove into the ship's interior structure like a rescue helicopter pulling survivors from a burning building. "All Marines aboard," reported the pilot. "We're clear of the target vessel." From the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Stone watched as the massive swarm ship began to show signs of systemic failure. Its bioluminescent patterns flickered and went dark, and the creature's movements became uncoordinated and erratic. But the real proof of Dr. Kim's success came from the behavior of the other swarm ships. One by one, they began to show the same symptoms: flickering lights, erratic movements, and loss of coordination. The virus was spreading through the fleet's communication network exactly as designed. "Admiral," Commander Park announced with barely concealed excitement, "the entire swarm fleet is showing signs of systemic breakdown. Whatever Colonel Reeves did over there, it's working." Stone watched as dozens of massive bioships drifted out of formation, their coordination network shattered by Earth's biological weapon. Some ships collided with each other, others simply went dormant, and a few began to show signs of internal collapse. "Sir," the communications officer called out. "Incoming transmission from the Zephyrian flagship." Commander Zethkar appeared on screen, his alien features showing what could only be described as amazement. "Admiral Stone, our sensors show the entire swarm fleet is breaking down. How is this possible?" "Earth military doctrine, Commander. When facing a superior enemy, change the rules of engagement." Stone smiled grimly. The swarm's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. Their perfect coordination depended on biological communication networks. We gave them a virus that turned their own unity against them. As they watched, the massive swarm ships began to drift away from Zephyr's Prime, their bioluminescent patterns dim and confused. Some ships attempted to retreat to hyperspace, but their navigation systems were compromised by the spreading virus. Others simply went dark, becoming lifeless hulks drifting in space. "Admiral," Captain Walsh reported from the UES Ranger, "I'm not detecting any organized swarm activity. They appear to be completely disoriented." Stone nodded with satisfaction. "All ships, maintain defensive positions but cease offensive operations. Let's see if they get the message." Over the next 6 hours, the remaining swarm ships gradually withdrew from the system. They moved slowly and without coordination, like animals recovering from a severe illness. The few ships that retained enough function to achieve hyperspace fled toward the outer rim, leaving behind the hulks of their fallen comrades. The Zephyrian system was free. 3 days later, Admiral Stone stood on the observation deck of the Zephyrian orbital station, looking out at the debris field that marked humanity's first major victory in galactic warfare. Around him, Zephyrian officials and Earth personnel worked together to coordinate cleanup operations and plan for system defense. Fleet Commander Zethkar approached, moving with the graceful gait of his species. "Admiral Stone, I've just received word from the Galactic Council. News of your victory here has spread throughout known space. 17 civilizations have sent formal requests for mutual defense treaties with Earth." Stone raised an eyebrow. "The same civilizations that ignored your distress call?" "The very same. It appears that news of Earth's military capabilities has caused quite a stir in diplomatic circles." Dr. Martinez, who had been documenting the battle for Earth's military archives, looked up from her notes. "Commander Zethkar, how do the other galactic civilizations view Earth now?" The Zephyrian's 4 eyes seemed to twinkle with amusement. "Dr. Martinez, before your arrival, most civilizations viewed Earth as an interesting curiosity. A death world that had somehow produced spacefaring intelligence. Now they call humans the species that fights nightmares and wins. Colonel Reeves, who had been checking on her Marines in the station's medical bay, joined the conversation. Any word on whether the swarm will return? Zethkar's expression became more serious. Dr. Kim's analysis suggests that the virus has permanently damaged the swarm's ability to operate as a unified force. The surviving ships appear to have reverted to basic survival instincts. They may still be dangerous to individual vessels, but they no longer represent a civilization-threatening force. Admiral Stone looked out at the stars, considering the implications of what they had accomplished. Commander, Earth responded to your distress call because you were our allies. We didn't calculate odds or consider costs. We came because you asked for help. And that, Zethkar replied, is why the galaxy is taking notice. In all recorded history, no civilization has ever successfully defeated a swarm invasion, but more importantly, no civilization has ever tried. Earth didn't just win an impossible battle. You showed up to fight it when everyone else was too afraid to try. Dr. Kim emerged from her laboratory, where she had been analyzing samples from the destroyed swarm ships. Admiral, I've completed my analysis. The swarm appears to have been a biological weapon, originally created by some unknown civilization and then left to evolve on its own. Over thousands of years, it developed into a force that consumed everything it encountered. A weapon that escaped its creators, Stone mused. And we stopped it with another biological weapon. Poetic justice, Colonel Reeves observed. As Task Force Guardian Shield prepared for the journey home to Earth, the personnel of both fleets gathered for a farewell ceremony aboard the Zephyrian flagship. It was a formal occasion, with representatives from both species acknowledging the bonds forged in battle. Fleet Commander Zethkar presented Admiral Stone with a crystalline structure that seemed to capture and reflect light in impossible ways. Admiral, this is a Zephyrian memory crystal. It contains a complete record of the battle, but more importantly, it contains our species' gratitude. As long as Zephyrian civilization endures, we will remember that Earth answered our call when no one else would. Stone accepted the crystal with formal ceremony, but his response was characteristically direct. Commander, Earth has a saying, we leave no one behind. You're our allies. That means something. Later, as the Earth ships prepared to jump to hyperspace for the journey home, Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the Defiance, reviewing the mission reports. Task Force Guardian Shield had achieved something unprecedented. They had saved an entire civilization from extinction and established Earth as a force to be respected in galactic politics. But Stone knew that the real victory wasn't military or political. Earth had proved that humanity's values meant something in a larger universe. When allies called for help, humans responded. When faced with impossible odds, humans adapted and overcame. When confronted with nightmares, humans fought back. Admiral, Commander Park announced, all ships report ready for hyperspace jump. Signal the fleet, Stone ordered. Take us home. As Task Force Guardian Shield jumped to hyperspace, carrying news of victory back to Earth, the Zephyrian system began the long process of rebuilding. But throughout the galaxy, the story of Earth's Deathworlders was already spreading. The species that had emerged from a world of constant danger had proved they could face any threat and find a way to win. 17 civilizations that had been too afraid to answer a distress call now wanted treaties with Earth. The galaxy had learned that humans were not just another curious species from a dangerous world. They were the civilization that fought monsters and won, that answered calls for help regardless of the odds, that turned impossible situations into victories through courage and determination. Earth's reputation among the stars was secure. They were the Deathworlders who saved civilizations and changed the course of galactic history. And somewhere in space, other species in danger would look to the stars and hope that the humans would come when called. The SOS had been unmistakable, and Earth's answer had been equally clear. When allies needed help, humanity would always respond. It was simply who they were.